Call this meeting to order. I'd like to ask Mr. Coward if he'd please lead us in our prayer and our pledge.
God, please. Heavenly Father, as we come to you today, we come to you so thankful for the County blessings that you bestow upon us. We thank you for the two graduations that we've already had and the upcoming ones that we have this week, Lord, and we pray for just a safety and pray for a stress-free and just a protection of weather around our graduation on Friday night, Lord. Lord, as we come to you, as we deliver it, we ask always that you first and foremost in our minds and that you give us guidance and wisdom. We also just lift up those that freely put themselves on the front lines that are dealing with the virus. And as we just come out of Memorial Day, Lord, we lift up those that paid the ultimate sacrifice, those that are willing to die for our freedoms, and those that deserve the freedoms that we have. We thank you for them and lift them and their families up. We ask all these things in your name we pray. Amen. Address the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Coward. Board members, we have a change in our agenda before we adopt it. Item F, our positive behavior intervention support will be moved to item E, we're reverse item E and item F. So we were going to have the public, the PBIS first, and then we're going to do the item E, work-based learning experience. So if do I hear a motion to approve that with those changes? Second. Have a motion and a second in discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Mr. Superintendent, do we have any public comments today?
Right.
Thank you. No comments were sent in to our meeting. We'll move on to item D and Heather Thompson.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. I'm here today to give you a brief update on our substitute system and a little bit about volunteers. Sorry. It's no signal. Going to talk about a few things today. As you know, we started with the frontline absence management at the end of last year. We piloted it in our schools. We officially started in all of our district schools in August of this year. Everything went well. We decided to implement the paraprofessionals on frontline, and we started them officially on January 29th, 2020. Due to the COVID, we're only able to use it for, a little over a month, but everything is all going well with that. Substitute teacher orientation training, we started doing this past year. We did 3 trainings, and in this orientation, we discussed policies, guidelines, day-to-day expectations. We received a lot of feedback from the substitutes on these orientations, and school administrators have been aware of these recommendations, and they've made improvements to better assist the substitutes with the tools they need in the classroom. So it's helped them a lot. And we plan on having another one this year if we can, depending on the guidelines. These are the things we talked about within this orientation training. We discussed our district's mission, our district's core values, our strategic planning teams, school safety, Frontline, and, of course, we go through questions and feedback on the substitutes. I created a new hire flyer to be distributed within the schools at the campuses, and I suggested having the schools distribute them within the local businesses. A lot of people don't know the requirements to be a substitute, so this has helped a lot. I've gotten a lot of phone calls to take the test. I've also created a substitute teacher handbook. This was provided to you in your binder. This handbook presents important contact information, websites, information about Frontline, quick reference materials, guidance and policies that help. I've also created a substitute teacher test study guide. Many of our substitute teachers are eager to get into our school system, but they don't have the college degree or the required college credit hours. And so I created a substitute study guide to help prepare them. Effective February 1st, 2020, I've taken the sole responsibility of hiring substitutes to take off the responsibility of school administrators and the department directors. My responsibilities include reviewing online applications for all substitute positions, including teachers, aides, custodians, food service workers, bus drivers, and bus attendants. I do a brief interview with the candidate. I check all the education and testing requirements. This includes scheduling the substitute teacher test as required, checking and calling all the professional work-related references, completing the status and recommendation forms, scheduling their drug screen appointments, and providing the frontline training and access, of course. And then notifying the secretaries and the new hires of the substitute schools. Since I've started recruiting and hiring the substitutes, I started February 1st, and these are the stats, February 1st through March 17th. I was able to hire 34 substitutes. This includes teachers, custodians, bus attendants, bus drivers, and food service. Some of these substitutes have also been hired as full-time employees. I know I have a bus attendant / custodian that was hired as a full-time custodian, and a couple of teachers that were hired as full-time teachers. We also have a school volunteer program. This year I started doing audits at our school during after-school sporting practices. This is to help ensure the safety of our students, to make sure that there's nobody out on the field that isn't required. Generally, when I do these audits, I approach the coach or the lead coach and kind of let them know why I'm visiting. I document all the names of the people on the field that are assisting. I check that the volunteers have the appropriate volunteer paperwork on file and along with the background check. And then I also check with Mandy Smith, our certification specialist, that the coaches are up to date with their certifications. This year, for the first time, our district recognized some outstanding school volunteers. This is a statewide recognition. That each year the Florida Department of Education recognizes outstanding school volunteers. Two of our volunteers were recognized, and this is Ms. Peggy Brooks at Wilson Elementary School and Tamara Boyle from Chico Middle High School. So we're proud that these two volunteers were able to get statewide recognition. I've also contacted the school foundation earlier this year on possibly recognizing a substitute of the year during the end of the year recognitions. So we're working on maybe next year doing something for the substitutes to give them a little incentive. That's never been done. Yeah, that's all for today.
So all the schools are implementing the program. They're all using it. Everybody's very successful with it.
So far, so good. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't had any complaints, so I mean, if there is some concern, I always go to the school and I talk to them in person, right, to kind of work out the details of what they're having problems with.
And so how many subs are we getting right now? I mean, applying.
Right now during, I've noticed during the COVID, we don't have as many people applying because I don't really know if they know that we're hiring. But, I mean, I still have plenty on the list from before that I can contact. Get started. I won't have a problem getting people.
Then start back in the new year.
I'll get started during the summertime. I'll be able to hire more stuff.
Yeah, I think this is a great package you have together and study guide and everything.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. Where are we advertising, ourselves? Where else besides, I know we always have the bus sign, but where else are we advertising for subs?
We're not really advertising for any subs right now, except for the flyer. I have it distributed within the schools, and I try to put it out within the community. But other than that, just online, website.
Any other questions?
It's not a question, I think it's like depends for anybody, everybody got it great. That's walking in and not walking into that unknown. Thank you for doing that. And also the sports audit. That's a good thing.
What was your findings on the sports audit? So how were we?
We're doing very well. I haven't had any compliance issues with that, so everybody seems like they're on par and it's good. Yeah.
The biggest issue with the sports audit is make sure that people who are around kids are people who are supposed to be around kids. Just from the administrative principal, one of the biggest issues with the whole substitute thing is the way the model was prior to this was that a substitute came to a school was opposed. And sometimes the school may or may not want to use that person, but it's the whole communication piece between school and how that happened really on the substitute. And there really wasn't a process in there so that substitute can work at multiple schools, especially in multiple communities. So this is a tremendous fit as far as that. And where Heather is the communication person, working with that person, as opposed to just student at university. And all that paperwork that has to go on with it. Because there's a host of it.
You answered my question before I could get to it. This was all part of a big plan to alleviate some stress. And I think this looks great, but what I wanted to hear was how so-and-so over here can spend 4 hours a day contacting subs and how that's working and how that communication process is working and how that is better coordinated. I'd also like to hear that I love that we have these subs, but I like hearing that we don't need as many subs as we once did. That we have. I love substitute teachers, but I also love having teachers in the classroom teaching my kids. So has it, what is the feedback coming? Like, for example, we had one that said, oh, I spend several hours in the morning, starting real early, having to call people to try to find somebody to come in and substitute. So how has that changed?
The feedback that I get, every school has a different strategy on how they approach, how they want to get in touch with their subs.
See, and I don't like that. I think the strategy should be, we talked to Heather, and Heather, a county-wide system.
Am I correct that something can post online, here's the things that are open?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so all that happens at a time for known vacancies.
Okay.
I think the issue is the
Last minute, the last minute phone call, the last minute afternoon, yes.
So what is the typical, okay, I teach English, I call who do I need to call at 6 o'clock in the morning if I woke up sick, get a substitute? What is my process? How does that work?
They would, if it was 6 o'clock in the morning and it was after the fact that they did in front line, they would call the person at the school and let them know that they were going to be in. So that way they can, move people around if they need to, because they only know the people that they can move with in school. Every school has.
Okay. So then, what? I'm being, I think maybe being too vague. So they start searching around at the school. Nobody's available. At what point we call in Chris to take my class? How does that work? Do you call them? Does the school call them?
The school takes care of that. So what they do in that process, every school has a different system. The last. I honestly couldn't be specific.
So that last minute phone call, nothing could really change.
Well, the difference is, what is your vacancy and non-vacancy? Okay. But when you have an emergency, you don't know what those are.
Right.
If the schools are better equipped to deal with them, you are. Because they need to, so it's gonna have to, you're still gonna have the school people in charge. When you wake up in the morning, your kid's got the flu, but I can't come to work. And the school's gonna have to cover, figure out a solution for that, you know. But if you got a dentist appointment, 2 weeks down the line, you got, or you're on professional development or something else, that's where this system works, is known to none. Because, but they've got the ability to go on and see what subs are available, who to call, and they can see that information.
And they also know that, like, I prefer to work in
Yes.
Williston, not Chamberlain.
Yeah, and people who think their own preferred schools,
Okay.
and,
All right, we got like elementary,
yeah,
high school.
yeah, I always ask them when I speak to them in personal schools.
But if we got a substitute that's very proactive, and wakes up at 6 o'clock in the morning, wants to check the emergency thing, see what's there, they can do that.
Yeah, or call the school or whatever, but 90% of the absences are correct.
So- So to piggyback off, if it's still emergency, they're still putting it on frontline. So as soon as whoever gets the call,
They type in.
they're gonna type in to frontline and it'll be up there. So
Well, I think it's great. I love the fact that they're better trained and they're more about work. That's great. Fantastic.
I just have one quick question. Are we, with this system, are we seeing more people that are willing to go to different communities? Or are we still siloed for the most part?
The majority of people like a specific, but I have seen a significant amount of people that are willing to do.
And do we have the ability to know, like, what percentage? I know we track student absenteeism, but teacher absenteeism with
Yes.
this, because we get those figures.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
are you email those?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That would be
Yeah,
nice
that
to
was-
see,
that
that
was-
see, so.
Was an issue when we started this, it seems.
So are we saving money? Think we're saving money?
I don't know if we'll save the money, but we'll work better.
Working better with our money?
Our kids are getting a better trained substitute. Our substitute fill rate, we have less teachers, filling in, so to speak. So I think the product is getting better. I think, they're better trained. Just work with that.
Excellent.
I think this study guide is great, so I think that's all of this packet is an excellent job, so. Last question is, so I'm a sub, do I get my instruction material through Frontline, or is that still, how does that come to know what I'm gonna be teaching for the day? So if I'm in that English class.
Within Frontline, they have an area where the teacher can have notes on Frontline. We're still trying to get a lot of the teachers to do that for the subs, through their day. For the most part, they are able to do it ahead of time, whether it's a week ahead of the day. That way,
So for the most part, so the majority of the teachers are doing it, or the majority of.
we're still trying to persuade the teachers to do it. That and their preferred substitute list, where they can go in Frontline and have their preferred substitutes, and then they get contacted first. That helps with the call process.
Madam Chair, I was just gonna chime in that the sports audit's really important, in this district's experience, and other districts that have a hard time with that. It's really encourage that process. This wouldn't be specifically for Wisconsin, but another aspect of that is doing some audit of the FHSA forms for every student applicant. Make sure that all that's turned in and everything before they do the first practice.
Our coaches and our athletic directors do a really good job.
They're pretty low.
They so understanding the importance of, but I hear what you're saying, and I know that's definitely saves us, keeps our options.
Thank you very much. All right. Item E would be our positive behavior intervention score. And we're doing that, Dr. Howell.
Yes, I mean,
We may need to wait a minute to upload. And then also, board members, I do need to let you know that, Mr. Etheridge did contact us and he did not.
Yeah, I'll put that.
It helps.
Good morning, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Right. Perfect, I'm sorry, it's gonna take me a minute, let me pull out my account.
Hey, right ahead.
Changed my password on Friday, so I hadn't forgotten.
I like the choice of books that she used for text. Those are all, they are great books for young children. You can read. Y'all notice that in the book section? On the, the highlight, where is it? Oh, here it is, the, capital letters and everything, good night, Madam Charles Swift, very under Kill Bell, where the wild things are. Gary will get three names in the hand, change some typos. It's just like classic great ass. I just think those are the best books.
That's one of the same thing as this,
Yes, sir.
but they all have the paper.
Yeah, okay, we do. Yeah, is Dr. Hall called in? Do I need to call Dr. Hall?
Yes.
I was a kid for the wild things on college.
Oh, huh. Yes.
And I did as well, I bought it for my kids.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, this is stupid. And I think it's because now I'm grown up. Right.
Yeah.
So something, but my kids are.
Yeah. And it's, the little, it's a little outfits.
Remember,
He doesn't seem to like me this morning.
do you have Mr. Monahan? He was gone. Mr. Monahan was hilarious. He was our librarian. Mr. Monahan was probably 6'5". Huge hands, heavy dark frame glasses. This laughter. And he would watch it. He would read that book. Very change his voice and all that.
Oh, yeah.
And he'd huge man and sitting in a little chair. And all, and he was a good guy. I remember reading to us and that's and our keeper teacher, Mr. Thompson. He was like 6'5" and soaking wet and have been 180 pounds.
Ah, yes,
His
all
Thompson
right.
was smaller stature, more voluptuous, and they made a pair. And that laugh, she had it like her laugh. It was awesome. And I can remember that. It's
All right,
We're ready.
Dr. Hall, can you hear all of you, but can you not hear me? I'm on the call but blocked. Who's in charge?
She's not blocked. Constance, the simplest thing may be to just call her on your cell phone and put her on
I
speaker.
can't, I don't know where, oh, yeah.
Have her call you then.
She always blocks herself with me.
Who's reading this thing to us? Tell us all about it.
All right,
You know
well,
how to do it.
I know, but I don't want to upset.
Good morning, Constance.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm just fine. I can hear all the conversation.
That's
Down here.
okay.
Okay, let's get started. So
Good morning.
here. It is with great pleasure that we recognize two of our students and two of our students. But before doing that, please allow me to share a few key points about the purpose of PBIS. The main focus is on people, intervention, and support. Now, with PBIS is a proactive approach that schools use to promote positive behavior, establish a social culture, and provide what's needed to improve social, emotional, behavioral, and academic outcomes of all our students. We will hear more from the school executive on how the implementation of PBIS and improve their school culture, the positive impact and outcome for their students. Research shows that behavioral differences are different situations. Students are expected to explicit instruction that's provided by the teacher and or their school counselor and or their behavior specialist or any other adult on their behavior, and with the opportunity to practice and receive feedback are essential. The National Education Association is PBIS and the digital education initiative that applies to students. PBIS was introduced nationally in the late 1980s, and since that time, the population has been tiered framework whereby students receive it and the process of paying the school based on the data into that is part. PBIS calls to teach confident behavior strategy. Just as we would teach any academic subject. At this time, I'm going to share my district Bible. There was about districts. And in my district, elected education. PBIS discretionary budget was very important in our district since 2001. If you recall, I began my career in 2004 and culture. So we have three services
All right, we have 8 schools that are PBIS schools. It is Bronson Elementary, Bronson Middle High School, Joyce Bullock, Williston, Yankeetown, Chiefland Elementary, Chiefland Middle, and Williston Middle High School. Dr. Hall and myself act as the coordinators, and we have a coach at each school. For the bronze being a bronze school at this point, or at least for last year, was really just doing paperwork. When you go forward to being a silver school, you need to show fidelity in one of the 10 primary focuses of PBIS. Then when you go to gold, you get 2 tiers. You have to show in 2 tiers, and it goes up through platinum. Now, other things can act against you. For example, if you have an abundance of a designated group that is getting more referrals than others, you can be popped back to a silver school. And that's actually what happened with Williston. They had one child that was referred more than others. And one child can really damage whether you're a silver or a gold school. What I'd like to say is that when you walk through Joyce Bullock and when you walk through Williston Elementary, it was just amazing to see how the principals and the teachers work together. And what this really comes down to is leadership and getting everybody on board. Okay, the paperwork is the paperwork, but I also go through every school and look at whether they have their signs up and, you know, whether they have the right things in the classroom as far as behavior requirements. But then I also talk to the students. And when you go to Joyce Bullock or when you go to Williston, the school kids are so involved. I talked to a couple of kids at Williston, and then they pointed me to another child, and I said, no, I want to talk to the one who's sitting away from everybody at lunch and see if he knows what PBIS is. So I sat down with him. He was obviously being corrected for some behaviors earlier, and that child knew everything about PBIS. So when you look at Williston Elementary, you look at the principal and you look at the guidance counselor who's also their coach, Gemma Fleming, and you see how they work together as a team. There's true leadership there, and they get everybody, every teacher and every student on board. The same thing was for Joyce Bullock. You went to the cafeteria, and there was a Plunkett or a Plinko game, and the kids got to play, and it built a team environment with the students, the teachers, and the administration. And anytime we want to increase from a B to an A school, school environment is really what's going to get us that next couple of yards to be A schools. Because you have the same kids, you're teaching the same curriculum, and it's having students in school that really want to be there. That's what's going to make the difference for Bronson or for Williston or for anybody in Lincoln County. So while PBS, people look at it as, well, Johnny gets a lollipop because he did the right thing for one day, that is not what PBIS is. PBIS is a culture. It's getting your leadership involved, it's getting your teachers involved, it's getting your students involved, and creating a school culture that benefits learning, and that's what's going to get your schools up to A's, is having that culture where everybody's working together, everybody has a common goal, and the behaviors are not negatively impacting your instruction. So that's why I think PBIS is so important. Did we have call-ins from Jamie? Okay, let them go, let them rip.
At this time, we'll hear from the student, followed by
Still there.
talk about the social.
Are they on the computer?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Good morning. So this is Melissa, and Jamie's on with me too. We actually worked together to create one presentation, so we'll just start with that. And I do want to reiterate what Constance said. PBIS rolls into the culture of the school, and I think that's what are at both Joyce Bullock and Williston Elementary. So what we did is we put together just a few screens to explain to you kind of how PBIS runs at each of our schools, so you can just kind of see I'd say a day in the life of it. Wait. Can you see my screen, Morgan?
One moment. Okay, we see you now. You just need to present.
It won't let me click the share button.
You can click present now.
Yep, and then I click share my screen, but it won't let me click share.
You have to click the picture of the screen, and then it'll let you go.
Sorry, we've been zooming over here, so I'm not as familiar with Google. That's good. All right, you can see it now?
Yes.
Okay. We good?
We're good.
All right. So each of our schools have, as a team, including staff and kids, narrowed it down. This is way back in the beginning of our PBIS days, to our school expectations. And so at Joyce Bullock, we have our ABCs: act safely, be responsible and respectful, and caring and sharing. These are reminded to the kids every single morning on our morning announcements. Miss Gant, who is our guidance counselor and our coach, who is retiring, she does the morning announcements each day and reminds the kids of these. Each summer, our new teachers come in for a day and we share with them what our PBS plan is. And then we do a little review with our staff each year. But the way it looks like at Joyce Bullock is the goal is to work as a team. So it's not individualized as far as a money system or anything like that. But the kids work together as a team in their class, and they work to earn charms. Every class has the same color system as far as behavior chart. Every kid starts on green. The kids can earn charms as a class when they go to lunch. So every class has a job, a person who has the job of carrying the class clipboard to lunch into special area and other spots on campus to earn those stamps. On their clipboards is called a wow chart, and that's where they can get the stamps from different people on campus. Once they fill in a full row of their wow chart, then they earn that charm. And it's just a system that doesn't cause extra work for the teacher. The charms are located either in the office or in the cafeteria, so when the class earns it, they can easily get their charm. And what they're doing is they're working towards earning 10 charms, and then they get to go to the Plinko board, which Constance mentioned. And so if you are familiar with The Price is Right, we have our own Plinko board, and then the kids get to drop the little clip in, and it falls into the spot of one of 5 different parties that they get to pick. And so it's really easy things like extra recess, lunch with the principals, milk and cookie party, popcorn and movie party, different things like that. So when they earn the 10 charms, their class gets something like that. At the bottom, you'll see that we have our 3 tiers, just like our academic side of MTSS. PBS runs through the same kinds of tiers. So I'm going to click to the next screen. You'll see what our different charts look like. So tier 1 is the WOW chart. Every student is part of their class, and they work together as the team to earn those stamps that fill up those boxes. If an individual child is showing some concerns as far as their behavior, then during our problem-solving team meetings, as a team, we work with the teacher, guidance counselor, administration, everybody, and we might decide to put them on a smiley chart. So that's the one in the middle. You'll see that that follows our school-wide expectations, but it gives the kid a little bit of extra attention as far as their behavior and if they're following our school-wide ABCs. And then if they're really struggling with behavior, it's more individualized, and that's the tier 3 when they're at the bottom right. And we call that the brag team. So kids are invited, parents are sent a letter that explains what the brag team is. And basically it's a check-in, check-out system. The kids come in with their brag sheets in the morning, signed by their family. Has specific goals. So there where you see goal 1, goal 2, we'll set specific things that child struggles with. And then we break down their school day and even possibly their bus time, if that's a struggle. And they get recognition of showing positive behaviors throughout the school day based on their specific goals. If they're not getting a smiley face, then that's the time that the teacher stops and has specific conversations with them, reteaching those behaviors to correct themselves. If the kids meet their goal, then they get something called a brag buck, and then they save up their bucks in order to For example, at the bottom there, you can see that if they save 15 bucks up, they get lunch from McDonald's, or we also have a little brag store that they can shop from. We have a PBS team, which is made up of our guidance counselor, which is the coach, our assistant principal, and teachers and paraprofessionals from across the school. And during those monthly meetings, they look at all sorts of data. So from Skyward, you can run things like the one with the blue bar graph. You can see referrals throughout the school over school years. And then the bottom right, you can see a breakdown by month in the current school year. You can sort it by class, like which class has the most referrals, what kinds of referrals, all sorts of things. And so that team meets monthly to talk about ideas for improving areas that are showing up as red flags, or just kind of how we're going through the year. And then this is our final screen. So it just kind of summarizes some of the activities and the fun that we build into PBS. In the upper left-hand corner, you'll see our character dance from this school year. So we call that our PBS character dance. And then in February, which is the bottom middle picture, we have a Valentine dance. So the kids dress up, dress their best. And then you can see how much our staff gets into it in the upper right-hand corner. That's everybody dressed up. We normally pick a theme school-wide to kind of go with. And so this year was Under the Sea. You'll see on the middle left there, that's our color chart that's in every classroom, so that when a kid says, I'm on green, like everybody knows that that's a good thing. They don't normally brag about the yellow, orange, or red colors. And then on the far left there, that's an example of our lunch with the principals. In that bottom left picture, in the back there, you can see our Plinko board, which is what we talked about, that has a little chip. So the kids love to visit the chip. And then bottom right, something that's really important is that PBIS does work with too, is building the culture and morale of our staff. And so we have a staff shout out board where everybody can, and including our community, can submit staff shout outs for things that our staff are doing that are amazing. So that's PBS at Joyce Bullock in a nutshell. Your turn, Jamie.
Great presentation. Great work you're doing over there. Thank you.
Well, it's the things that it's kind of like the behind the scenes force that make school fun, make employees excited about work, and the relationships. So that's what's important to us.
You guys stay on for a couple minutes. Dr. Hall has asked. Stay on.
We have another presentation.
Okay.
Okay.
Good morning. At Williston Elementary, we do a lot of the similar things. Our expectations are working together, earning and giving respect, and staying safe in our surroundings. Those are our mantra, basically, that we live by. Go ahead, Melissa. Some examples, we have a lot more, so I didn't want to list them all, but some of our reward examples, we use a coin system. So students, when they are walking around campus, go to special area, lunch, recess, from other staff members, they can earn coins. And when you earn 10 coins, you can spin the wheel and choose and here are some examples, like choose a story to be read to the class, silly but safe walk and transition to specials, eat lunch outside, listen to music while we work. Those are such some quick things that they can earn if they want to cash in their 10 coins. They can save up. A lot of groups like to save up their coins, and then they get they spin the wheel and get some big items like a popcorn party, hot chocolate party, ice cream party. And then some of them really like to save up and wait for the big one where they save 100 coins where they can earn a pizza party for their class. So it really does build a team collaborative mindset to work together to accomplish those goals so that they can earn their coins. We have some events throughout the year. At the beginning of the year, we have a PBS assembly, just like Williston, Joyce Bullock, where we go over the expectations with students, because especially transitioning from Joyce Bullock, the third graders need to know just what some differences are. but also to reinforce our expectations for the year. In October, we have a fall celebration, December, a winter one, and then May at the end of the year is our big group celebrations that the kids work towards. And in those events, we include games, arts and crafts and dancing, and it's a little bit of different kinds of activities for them all to pick and choose to do with their friends during that time. We also review our existing procedures, and some of those are, these are our ones. And some of these I want to tell you are very, they mirror a lot of Joyce Bullock, just so that we can keep that continuum for the kids, so it's not confusing to them. So we do start, most classrooms use the color chart. I will say all third grade does. When they start to get older, like in fifth grade, we tend to lessen the use of the color chart. And do some other strategies with them just because of their age. They don't respond well to it. They still earn the compliment coins. We have positive referrals, which are a little different, where kids get shout outs from their friends, other staff members on things that they're doing well. And we have a wall in our media center where we post kids' positive referrals, and we showcase them as well on announcements and to their peers. They can earn Red Devil dollars, and that's more of, and coupons from their teachers. So there's some immediate reinforcement that's given to students on top of the coins, so that there's individual reinforcement. We also do something before a child gets a referral, and we have a pre-referral, and that we do through a Google document, and it goes to the assistant principal, Ms. Hancock, and Ms. Fleming, our guidance counselor. And the pre-referral is a way for us to intervene before the behaviors will escalate to actually get a referral. So it allows us to intervene, ensure that parent contact's being made, and really try to intervene with the child so that they are earning positive reinforcement. And we also are heavy as when our kids get to, like she said before, tier 1 is our color chart and our coins. Tier 2 is more of an individual reinforcement, and also counseling with our guidance counselor. But then sometimes tier 3, we have individual charts for kids, but we also have counseling referrals via email for some outside agencies that might need to be involved, as well as individual counseling with Ms. Fleming. And one thing that we think is very important that has been an issue in the past that we started this last year in particular is we've created a sub binder with procedures so that our subs are well versed in our expectations for our kids and ways they can reinforce good behavior when they're in the classroom. Our data, this comes from our EWS data in particular. This is our last year's data. It's kind of hefty, but I will tell you it is improved from last year. And every year it seems to improve. Of course, you get different groups of kids in, and sometimes that can alter your data a little bit. But seeing that we were dealing with our 4th grade group going to 5th grade next year is a little bit more of a challenge. But we have definitely done some things with maturity and intervention that has improved their behavior. But our areas that are most, that are of concentration for us are our males. Those are the highlighted ones. There are males, our students with disabilities, our African Americans, and our multiracial. Those are our areas we really focus on when we're looking at decreasing the referrals there, because we think that if we intervene, we have been intervening, and it has lessened the numbers, but those are our focus areas. And then I'm sorry, did you just want to say something?
Thank you, I didn't know you were not, I'm sorry.
One more. And just like Williston or Joyce Bullock, we have PBS team goals where we meet monthly to discuss events and data. And we also problem solve and create new ideas to incorporate based on data. We may even drill down to certain students that need certain interventions. And using that collaborative experience in the PBS team allows us to generate some different out of the box thinking from other staff members from 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. We have a paraprofessional on the team, as well as Ms. Fleming leading it and Ms. Hancock. And they work hard at looking at ways to improve our students who are most challenged. And then organizing and planning large PBS events like I spoke about earlier. I think that's it.
I know Dr. Hall has,
And let me ask board members if they have any questions first from the principals.
I just have one question. So, Mr. Ward, you said that, Williston L dropped down because one kid this year.
I think it was, Jamie, was it one child, an African-American male that really made us, you guys really almost qualified for gold, but that one child popped it down to a silver because we had too many categories.
Are we referring to because we had the Baker Acts?
It could have been, but we did have some issues with one student and because they were in a specific category, that popped them down from gold to silver because they have done everything and really been a star for PBIS.
Well, that's kind of where I was going to go with this, to say, you know, the fact that obviously Melissa and Jamie work so well together, and it's really a team atmosphere. And for you to say that they're really a gold, I find that a little egregious that one student would take that down a level. And so I struggle with that because we always want to reward our employees that are excelling, and I think this is two administrators.
Absolutely, both teams have really demonstrated a high level of leadership and goal setting, and unfortunately, a lot of PBIS is data driven, and we send our data off to University of South Florida, and they make the final decision. I mean, if I could give a goal to both of these schools, I would do that, just because it's so top down. And it's not just the schools, it's top down altogether because we have Charlotte Hunt, we have Holly Willis, John Lott, Dennis Weber, Dr. Hall, and myself. It is a big team, so everything is top down.
And I think it really shows that these two schools, that everybody from, you know, the lunchroom person, the custodian, all the way to the top to the administrator, so that they feel like it is a team atmosphere. So appreciate it.
It is, and it's kind of like looking at youth mental health first aid, while we train everybody because it takes everybody.
No doubt.
Ms. Ward, I know they have got to go at 10. Can I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
Jamie, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
How does PBIS, as far as culture, work with AVID?
The common expectation for students and using that common language, just like AVID is. I will say too, since we've implemented AVID, and there's that focus on collaboration and engagement with the students, we see a heightened engagement in the classroom, so it lessens the amount of students that are off task with their behaviors, and so it keeps kids engaged more. And I think that's a true testament to the way AVID plays into PBS, as well as again that common language and that common everybody having that same expectations and that growth mindset that they can improve no matter what. So PBS is huge about that as well. You know, I might not be doing behaviorally, but what can I do to do better? And we can goal set with, just like we goal set with behaviors, we goal set with our academics and our aspirations with AVID.
And that's why it's a part of our strategic plan and district initiative next year.
And I know Dr. Hall wants to present some balloons, but I want to thank you guys also because it was my first year as a PBIS coordinator, and you guys couldn't have made it easier for me. So thank you so much to get 2 schools my first year. Next year, we're hoping for more.
Right. You know, through the years, these 2 schools, they do excellent. These principals are outstanding. We do appreciate them and everything.
Absolutely. I met Jamie through Stellar, and I gotta say that her school is taking advantage of everything that is ever offered, and it's awesome.
So what do we do to translate this? Taylor Bronson to Chiefland to Yankeetown.
They're all in it, and as she illustrates, a lot of, I mean, all schools are doing it, and all schools are working hard. And it's whether or not they meet these criteria for awards and stuff like that. All the schools are working hard at doing this.
We had a little lapse because we had somebody leave early as far as SETNet, and then I came in, so hopefully going forward, now that I know what I'm doing a little bit more, because I had no idea, and thank God these 2 schools helped me out, but we will be on it. And behavior is everything, especially in rural schools. I'm putting Dr. Hall on. Dr. Hall, you're up. I know you wanted to make your presentation. Hello? Dr. Hall, can you hear me?
I think these balloons are for the two ladies.
These balloons are for the two ladies, and they each get a banner that they will put up, and hopefully, Jamie, I'll be calling you later today because we want to get that banner for next year too.
Okay, sounds great.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
My question is not for the principal, and I don't want to knock anything. I can see how this works in elementary. A second grader, yes, it's party, I'll do anything you want. Who do you do in high school and middle school?
I think it's a mindset. I mean, I know I taught math at Bronson Middle High School. My kids, every day they walked in my class, said, good, better, best, never let it rest. And I had a little moniker, and they said it every day when they came in my class. They learn this, and it's just, as we teach these kids, it's giving them the leadership, giving a moniker that they understanding that we can always strive to be better. I'm not teaching just algebra, I'm teaching you how to be successful, and high expectations. And in middle school and high school, the children are it's like if you go shooting pool, you shoot to the level of your competition. These kids, it's setting high expectations in the classroom.
So we all want warm and fuzzies, and I'm the guy that always shoots off butterflies, and I'll admit it. But at what point do you go, okay, Johnny, I have begged you, I have tried to do with you, I have tried to get you to turn your whole thing around. At what point do you go, hey, this ain't working?
I never give up on my kids. And if Johnny's not doing it, I'll say, hey, Stevie, I really liked the way you did your homework last night. That is amazing. Would you like to get up and teach the class? Hey, Susie, I really like the way you did specific praise. And you'd be surprised. Most of our children want to be noticed. They want to do they want to please. So when you use specific praise, which is part of what PBIS is, the kids come on board so easily because they want you to want to teach them. And that
I don't know. Can I interject real quick? I think too, Mr. Asbell, it has to do with relationships, especially in the middle high school. I know that is why with our fifth graders, we tend to let back a little bit on some of the things that we do with them that we do with some of the younger kids, because it all boils down to relationships, and that's a strong, avid correlation as well. But especially middle high school, the gimmicks aren't going to work with them. And so relationships is all what it comes down to.
Okay, that makes solid sense to me. I think, in talking relationships, I think that is the key to those two successes. Those two are a perfect example of relationships between schools. One knows these kids are going to go to this school when they get to this point, so we've got to work together. Every school should do that.
Everybody knows I'm not a first career teacher. I'm in sales, okay? Relationships is how you sell. And every day, everybody needs to sell these kids that to get through school is what's going to make them successful. And it's sales and relationships. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Easter.
Now, it's Dr. Hall, she's presenting the next one. I mean, we'll call on a landline, is what I would suggest.
Yes, I know that somebody's out there, so I will tell him that.
No, I mean, is Dr. Hall, does she still need to present, or is she? Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Since you were doing Dr. Hall,
I'll take
So we're going to move on to our work-based learning experience.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Dr. Hall, are you with us?
no, sir, I don't think she is.
No? Y'all tell her I did a fantastic job.
We will.
Feel free to lie. Well, I will tell y'all, thank you, Ms. Edison, thank you for being, willing to take a risk on a new program and to create a position. Board, thank y'all very much for, the same thing. This was a little bit of a risk for us all. But, anyway, Dr. Hall has kind of had a vision, and you know, if y'all know, she's a risk taker. She's always looking for something new for our students, and so we, partnered with Voc Rehab. Did she share any of she was gonna talk and share some preliminary stuff about what the program?
She's been, that's her,
Okay.
we've been on PBIS for.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll kind of give y'all the rundown here, and I'll try to make it short. A couple of years ago, 2 years ago, I think it was, Voc Rehab created this program called Work-Based Learning Experience. And you guys, I think y'all are familiar with it. It's not a new concept to you, but we created this huge, or completed this huge application, and we became a vendor for Voc Rehab to provide these services, and that led to the creation of my position. We get reimbursed financially for the services that I provide, and anyway, this past year, we started out with 12 students that we attempted to provide services for. Through Voc Rehab, they tier these students, tiers 1, 2, and 3, with tier 3 being the most needy students. Dr. Hall's vision for this program, and I think it was certainly the appropriate vision, was that we had a group of students in our classrooms that had graduated from high school. They were typically from 18 to 22 years old. As you know, these students can stay till they're 22 years old. And so we kind of had a hole in their program there where they had already earned their diploma, fulfilled all their academic requirements, and now, they're sitting in a classroom continuing to do academic stuff, which is not completely inappropriate, but it was time for maybe a new program. So this gave us an opportunity. Those were all tier 3 students. So we targeted those tier 3, 18 to 22-year-old students as the beginning of our program. And I don't think this is where this program is going to end, but it's where we chose to begin the program because we felt like that was our students that needed the support and needed something besides what we were able to provide. So we started out with 12 students that we targeted. Voc Rehab came in, and I sat down with Voc Rehab. We did an extensive interview with the parents, with the student, and this thing kind of was really drawn out. We were hoping to be started long before we were, but as y'all know, anytime you deal with the state and an agency like Voc Rehab, there are times when they move at their own pace. They don't move at our pace. So anyway, we started out with about 12 kids. A couple of those students, they have to meet certain requirements, the employability requirements of Voc Rehab. They have to have a certain amount of employability skills. In other words, I can't just say, I want Sally Sue to be part of the program. Voc Rehab has to do an evaluation of them and make sure they have skills to make them employable. So of the kids we targeted to begin with, several of them, after a long drawn-out process, it was determined that because of the severity of their disability, that they needed to be looked at a little deeper to find out what their employability skills were. So that pulled them out of the program after we were way into the process. Had another student that we get in, literally we go all the way through this 3-month-long process, many meetings. The dad says, I'm not signing that paper. I'm not signing anything that the government wants me to sign, and we're not doing this. So, we lost another student. So anyway, we wound up with 8 students that started the program, and obviously, as y'all are fully aware, we didn't complete our school year, so therefore we didn't quite get all of them finished. There are some requirements, and I tried to make myself some notes here. I kind of feel like a preacher brings notes in, but I only have 7 points. Most preachers have 3. No, I do actually have 7 things written down here. It'll be shorter. It'll be shorter than your Brother Gordon's sermon. How's that? So anyway, this is a supervised work experience, a little bit different than the CDE program. I can't take these students to a work location and just drop them off and drive away and come back, pick them up, and log out. A human being, one of our employees has to physically be there on site, doing, literally working right alongside them. So that was my job as a transition specialist. Within that WVLE model, the work-based learning experience model, I was the employment specialist. So that was my job, to be on site with them. We can provide services through tier 1, 2, or 3 to any student in our county that has an IEP or a 504 plan. So this doesn't just limit us to those 18 to 22-year-old intellectually disabled students. We can expand that. And that, as you'll see when I get down to some of my goals at the end here, we have a goal to move beyond that. Another thing that was important about this program is I can't just go somewhere like to Paige and say, Paige, will you let us work at your restaurant? Which she so graciously has already. But I can't just say, well, Johnny's coming to work at your restaurant. Through that extensive interview process with our both rehab counselors, that student has to show some interest in working in a place. The kid has a large amount of input in this. I can't just say, Johnny, you're going to, the Gathering Table Restaurant, so I'll see you Monday. They have to say, I think I might like working in a restaurant. And so there were some guidelines. We did focus on our Tier 3 students. Those students, in order for them to have completed their work-based learning experience, they have to complete 41 hours within the program. And that was a change from last year. You guys may have heard some stories from Gilchrist County, the amount of money that they collected through their program. They had a 20-hour requirement last year. And this is my assumption, just as a state employee, I got a feeling that Voc Rehab probably gave out a lot more money than they anticipated, so they doubled the requirement for 20 hours, 40 hours, which severely cut into our ability, to advance our program. How about I use that term? So
do you think that next year that they'll have to do the 41 hours too, their county?
They have already, well, they had to do it this year. Everybody in the state had to do the 41 hours for Tier 3 students. The Voc Rehab has already had a webinar with us and notified us that they are changing those guidelines. The minimum number of hours that a student can serve right now will be 10 hours this next school year. So I could bring a student to your restaurant page and we could work for 10 hours and then I could move them somewhere else. Now, the amount that we can bill for is obviously not going to be the same as what we bill for 40 hours, but we can move them every 10 hours and have them had a completed experience. So we have a little more flexibility now, which I think is good. I'm a little cautious in saying that because, as y'all know, living in Levy County, we do have a limited number of businesses that are going to open our doors or open their doors to us and just welcome us in. I wish it wasn't that way, but that is kind of the world that we live in. So moving a child every 10 hours, this is just my initial thought, it may be difficult. You're talking about 4, you could have probably 8 experiences in one school year. That means 8 different work locations. They can't go to the same work location twice. So we're going to have to figure out how we're going to, operate within that model. But I had 4 students that did complete the 41 hours. The state allowed us to do some paper packets at the end when school ended in order to complete some hours. I had 4 students that were literally within like 8 hours of completion. They were within like 8 hours of completing the 41 hours. The state allowed us to do some paper stuff that was work related to get to that 41 hours. So we did have 4 complete program. Another important part of it, when we sit down with Voc Rehab and the student, if you guys are familiar with an IEP meeting that we have, we write goals and objectives for students based on their needs. It's very similar to the plan that we write for our students. We write a goal for them, an employment goal for them. And I'll give you an example. I had one student, the first time, he wouldn't even look you in the eye. Sit here with his head down, just kind of nod, yes and no, no conversation. If you asked him a question, the answer was yes or no. There was no elaboration. It was very simple. So we wrote a communication goal for him. He started working, but his goal wasn't about physical labor. His goal was about communicating with his coworkers and his supervisor at that work location. So it's not all about just work, the physical part of it. It's about growing the whole student. The other thing that I wrote, Dr. Hall asked me to kind of give y'all an overview of the program. The jobs that these students perform at these work locations are very similar to the jobs that any hired employee would perform there. Now, we typically don't clean restrooms, or we don't do something that's dangerous. We're not putting our kids in harm's way. But like have a student work down here at Ace Hardware, with John Meeks, and we loaded bags of feed, we loaded bags of concrete, we loaded lumber, we stocked shelves, we swept the floor. I mean, whatever needed to be done, we did it. We learned how to do it and we did it. So they're providing the same service that a hired employee is. These students do not get paid. This is not a paid work experience. They could be paid if the employer chose to. That's not something we're asking our business partners to do. We're just thankful that they're willing to let us, take a chance on us and let us work. So, fortunately, we had some good ones. Hopefully some of our business partners are on the phone with us. I don't think that maybe they can hear but can't talk. Is that the way it works? Well, I do want to publicly call them out and tell them thank you. I've already thanked them in person, but I want you all to know who they are. Williston Ace Hardware over in Williston, obviously. They employed one of my students. I had 2 students that were going to be there. One of those students was one of the ones that at the end of the day, boat rehab determined was not quite ready for that experience. So Williston Ace Hardware, great partner with us. Hope to have at least 2 kids there next year. Bronson Ace Hardware, right here in town, had a young man there, did a great job, and those guys are very accommodating. Complete Sleep and Furnishings over in Chiefland, had 1 student there. There again, I had a second student that was targeted to go there. That was the dad that chose not to sign the paper. Wonderful work site, would have had plenty to do for 2 kids, and we could have doubled our exposure, but anyway, when you get 3 months into something, it's kind of hard to start again. So we did have 1 student there, and the Wilson Animal Group, I don't know if you guys are familiar with them, WAG, if you've seen their signs. They allowed us to come in, had 2 students that worked there. They expressed an interest in working with animals. Those ladies that volunteer there and run that program, man, they welcomed us and were wonderful. Great, that's a really good work site for us. There's a lot to do. Obviously, the kids love the animals. They're never bored there. They never, Mr. Clinton, we don't want to go to work today. There's none of that. They're always happy to go. The children's table, the food pantry right here in Bronson, those guys, I had 2 students that worked there. I had 2 more that were targeted there. Those were 2 of the 2 more that boat rehab had determined were not quite ready, so kind of cut us in half of what we had planned to do there. And then I had 1 student with some real unique abilities, and I wound up working with him at Chiefland Middle High School as a kind of an aide. He and I just did some school stuff, and so Chiefland Middle High School was our other work location. And then Paige, I've apologized to her many times for not having a student. Hopefully my explanation page that the kid has to show me some interest, has to voice some interest in front of those boat rehab counselors that they're interested in working in the restaurant. And the young man that I had there with you last year, he's interested in that, but I can't take him back there because he's already had that experience. So we're starting back from scratch. But Paige was actually our very first partner. Before we were a work-based learning experience program, a vendor with boat rehab, when we were back as a community-based training program, Paige was our very first business partner and has been a wonderful site. And Paige, I promise we'll be back.
I'm a big advocate for the program. I just love it, and it's fantastic, and can't say enough good things about it. So, if you need me to come speak to those kids before, or motivate, or anything, I'll be happy to do it.
Well, you know what?
Solicits.
What I may need from you over time is when I visit a business, they'll give you as a reference, where maybe they can call you on the phone and say, how did this experience go for you? Was it a liability? Because the liability issue, y'all, is a big deal. When we start taking students with disabilities into somebody's business, man, you can just kind of see them cringe a little bit. But, I make them a promise that, I'm never going to leave the student. I'm going to take care of them. And we've had some great experiences, and we've got some really good business partners, and we've been welcomed back to all those places. So it's good. I do have some goals. Dr. Hall's asked me to call her before I complete my presentation, and the phone's ringing, and it's her.
Okay.
Hello? How are you?
Kyle, when you get finished, can you walk through what a typical day is?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna put you on speakerphone. Is that okay? Okay. All right. Can you hear me, Dr. Hall?
Ken, you're doing a beautiful job. Continue.
Well, I didn't think you could hear me. I told the board to just tell you I did a good job. Well, anyway.
She needs to mute her.
Can you hear me?
I log off the screen.
There you go.
Okay, all right. Yep, this good now.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, so anyway, I would kind of like, I mentioned the student that Complete Sleep and Furnishings over with Jason Kennedy. And his name, when I first met him, he would not look us in the eye, just gave yes, no answers. And we started going there, a lady named Abby, she's the manager there, and she took those guys started talking to him, getting to know him as a person. And before long, I came in one day just on my own, just stop by and visit with him, make sure everything's going okay. I mean, I live right here in Chiefland, and I was at Tractor Supply or something, walked in the door. She said, "Kyle, you're not going to believe it." A couple of days ago, and just came in and started talking to us. And I'm like, that's what we're looking for, is for a kid to gain that confidence to where, you had a kid, there's no way he would have gone in and asked Paige for a job or asked Jason Kennedy for a job. He just didn't, that wasn't in his toolbox. But now on a Tuesday on his own, he just walks in because his mom's next door at the restaurant. He just walks in and starts making conversation and talking to these people. So that's really what this program, what we're looking for. There's just so much that goes into these students to get them employable, and that's our target, is to get them, when they leave Lee County School Board, school system, that they are an employable adult. Huge success story. And it wasn't because he learned how to put a rocking chair together, which we did. It was so much fun. But anyway, it was because he grew and matured as a young man and learned how to, that he had skills. He had value, and that was really awesome. I do have some goals here that and y'all don't cringe and throw me out of the doors. I read these are goals. Y'all understand that. But anyway, I just wrote down 3 things that as we move forward that I think that we could achieve in the future. And obviously, the obvious one is we want more student participation. 8 students, that was not the number that I was looking for this year. I was looking for 12. We've, obviously finished with 8. We want to grow that number. A couple of these other goals are going to be directly related to that. The second one is we got to increase our business partners. We got our footprint in the community. The number of businesses that are willing to let us in their doors has to grow. That's going to have to grow through word of mouth, through some of these business owners that have already partnered with us at their Rotary Club meeting or whatever, being willing to say, hey, that was a wonderful experience. It was good for us. And then lastly, as that program grows, we're going to need to hire another job coach or something along those lines. I believe this program will sustain itself financially. Those aren't numbers that I'm always privy to, but obviously it generates money. As we increase the number of students in our program, we're going to generate more money, but we're going to need more bodies. We're going to need a job coach to go along with me, because of the fact that you have to be present with these students. They don't allow us to just drop them off and then just check on them like maybe Ms. Barnes does with our CDE students or Ms. Clemens or something like that. So we do have some goals for the future. This year was wonderful. Chris, you asked about a normal day. I would pick the students up 8:30 in the morning, pull up in the van, pick them up. Usually I would have called in to the school, to the teacher, text the classroom teacher, hey, I'm pulling up out front and send, and they would meet me in the office. We'd sign them out, get in the van. We'd go down to the children's table. As you know, that's a volunteer program. We walk in the door. Those ladies, literally after about 2 weeks, both those students knew what their jobs were. I don't have to physically be standing right next to the students the whole time. I have to be on the premises working with them. So I split my time between the 2 students. So anyway, get started, they have a table like this and have all the bulk items and had to be put in smaller bags or whatever. So I get rolling, and I go. Already started with Lord, I hate to tell you, I can't remember the fellow's name. But anyway, working with him, and they're unpackaging stuff off of a semi truck. And then I'd go out and work with them, I'd come back in, and, you know, so anyway, we do that till 11:30, 12 o'clock, depending on what things we had to do that day at that work location. Some days 11:30, some days 12. And then I would drop them back off at the school. My other student, Jarquez, there at Bronson High School, ran with me, and we take off, we get to Bronson Ace Hardware, and like on Tuesday was their truck day, and when we get there, we start stocking shelves, and learn how to read the tags and line up and match up the numbers and product codes, and you know, we get a call that, hey, we need to load 15 bags of feed, and off we go to the, you know, to load feed, you know, just basically the same jobs that any employee that you know, that John has employed there. We would do it. But yeah, that would be a typical Monday or Tuesday. Wednesdays, I had complete sleeping furnishings. We had a little bigger window. That's why some of the students were able to get 40 hours, because I had a little bigger window with some of them. And anyway, we would go to complete sleeping furnishings, had a little bigger time there. Then I'd come back, had the other student that worked just on campus at Cheatham High School, and he and I would we'd get in the back room. We did what our primary job was, and this sounds strange, we have to be creative. Sometimes y'all understand we have to be creative. He wants to be a coach. He loves sports. Kid eats, sleeps, and breathes it. He's an incredible young man. And so we had to be creative to find something that put him with a job somewhere around the sports world. So we entered basketball stats. That's where we started. That was our job. Coach Boyd I'd pick up the basketball stats from Coach Boyd. We'd get on my computer, and he and I would go through those stats. We'd break them down into free throws, 3-pointers, you know, attempted and made, and come up with all that stuff. We entered all in max preps on their system. And, yeah, you know, we just try to be creative. And anyway, so unfortunately, our season ended, and that, he was one that I didn't get to 40 hours, because there was just no way to really be creative and get him those other, he needed like 12 or 13 hours, and there was really no way to get that number. So, but that's kind of a typical day. I mean, I had them divided into groups, half a day with one group, half a day with the other group. Now, there were times when if I had a student that was absent, like at Cheatham High School, instead of just, you know, coming back to the office, I would call Bronson, and I had the flexibility, like with John up here, I had the flexibility out here at the children's table. Hey, I'd call Rebecca Hood at school, can I get Savannah and Jesus, my student in Cheatham was absent today? And I'd go by and pick them up, and we'd spend, you know, 3 hours at the children's table bagging stuff up on a day we weren't even supposed to be there, because we needed to log out. And so, there's not a lot of sitting around time, not a lot of time to sit around eating a bologna sandwich, because we're, you know, trying to keep it rolling, but had a lot of fun. I have had fun. So, any other questions? That was kind of we are, on the last note here, we are going to present our business partners with a certificate. And if you guys are on the phone, as you know, I've already thanked you, and we've talked a lot. But I do want to tell you, we have a certificate here that we're going to hand deliver, but it says work-based learning experience certificate of appreciation, and it's a special thanks to, you know, your business, and it'll have your name on it. And it just says that we thank you for your support of our students, and it's from the school board of Lee County. And we really do appreciate it if you guys are listening. Thank you all very, very much.
Ms. Brooks, just one comment. I do want to point everybody towards our mission statement. And, you know, it's talking about educating all students. And our main goal here is to graduate our kids ready for college and career success. And hats off to Quincy and what he's doing in this program. And getting some of our students ready for career success that probably would.
Yes, I can tell he's very passionate about it, and he does an excellent job, and I think he might even make a good preacher and all that points. And that's right. And also, I think he'd make an excellent Rotary speaker, so maybe we get you some more community involvement somehow. We are going to invite you. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yes, ma'am.
This is Dr. Hall.
Yes, ma'am.
I want everyone to know I'll be so glad when the social distancing disappears. It's very difficult for me not to be in the room with all of you. How you've done a beautiful job presenting.
Thank you.
And I had all my things laid out. The things that I want us to capture is, first of all, you all can see why Kyle was chosen. I specifically chose him for this position because he does it so well. And he loves our kids so well and works so closely with them. We talked about relationships from our previous presentation with PBIS. That's what it's all about, relationships and caring for our students and our families. I want to come full circle again, and I really want to recognize Ms. Griggins again. As Kyle has shared, you are our first business partner to open your restaurant, The Gathering, and you embrace our students, your employees did as well. And you gave us that opportunity, and I know that you're still interested in pursuing and assisting our students as we move forward. It was approximately 3 years ago, if I recall correctly, when we recognized Ms. Griggins and all the support that she's provided. And I want you to know that we love you and we thank you for taking a risk with our students where they did not have an opportunity prior to. And now we've expanded this program. And it's because of the Vocational Rehabilitation Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, where they added this component primary for the agencies for preparing our youth with disabilities for employment while they're still in school. Because our goal is when they leave us, they have workable skills, employability skills. They've learned that way of communicating with their employer, with their employees, with their colleagues, etc. And as Colin indicated, we do believe that the money that is being, that we've earned through the services that Kyle has provided, along with outcomes for our students, that it is going to allow us to hire job coaches because we need them at the various businesses, as Kyle said. That's one of our goals, to expand our business partners. And we're so very thankful for our partners who have opened their doors this year and continue to support the work that we're doing alongside our students. So job coaches, we're going to bring that money back into the program. It also pays a large percentage of Kyle's position as well. And I see that continuing. And job coaches and transportation, and also the opportunity for our students to also go on college tours, just like every student in our district have that opportunity. And whatever we do for all, it means every kiddo have those same opportunities, access and equity for all. And I just can't thank the school board for continuing to support the work that we do. Is it easy? No, it's not. Is it worth it? Absolutely. To train our students, to give them what they need, so they go into the world successful like every student in our district. And I'm just so very thankful. And again, if our business partners this year are on the line, we are so very thankful for you as well. There are many districts in the state who have not come on board with the work-based learning experience, but they too will, because we had a conference call a couple of weeks ago with all the directors, and you know me, I'm always bragging about Levy County. We're small, but we're mighty. And we are really leading the way, not just in smaller rural districts, even our larger districts, where we are specifically focusing on this population of students. As you may be aware, our students can also, and have the opportunity, if they so choose, to defer their diploma, which means that they're 20 years old, 18 years old, up to 22, they have met all their graduation requirements, but they decided, or their parents, in their age majority, they can decide at age 18 that I have all my credits, I can graduate, but there's still some skills that I still need in order to feel good and be successful when I leave my school. They can defer their diploma, and when they defer their diploma, they return to us. And when they return to us, we need to provide something different for that population of students. And that's what Kyle is doing, and doing a fabulous job. But I can't thank you enough, and thank you for the opportunity to speak via phone instead of in person. Before we adjourn, there was one last thing that I wanted to bring closure to. Our previous presentation for PBIS. You see two balloons. I can't see them, but I know they're there. There's one that's a star, and there's one that's a heart. The star balloons represent beautiful, good, and positive, which is what you heard from Melissa and Jamie today regarding the culture of their school. The heart represents compassion and understanding, and that demonstrates working with their students, their staff, and their families. Everyone on each of their respective campuses have bought into PBIS and support to students. And collectively, it contributes to effective teaching and learning. And as Mr. Edison brought to our attention, it aligns very nicely with AVID and all that AVID's bringing to our schools and moving forward to our district as a whole. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak and share via the phone. But you know, when I can be in person, I'm going to be right there in person so I can see you, you can see me. But I hope you can feel the energy and the passion that I have for the work that we're doing collectively. And I thank you once again.
Thank you, Dr. Hall.
Not to prolong my part of the presentation, but a comment that she made. Another change that Book Rehab is making this year, if I understand it correctly from the training, the brief training we went through, the money that we collect from this program, we'll have a lot more flexibility on how we spend it going forward. Before we had to submit a budget and we couldn't venture from that budget. We couldn't buy a vehicle with that money. We couldn't, there were just all these things you couldn't do. It's my understanding that they've removed those stipulations, and so now we'll have, as there's things that we need, if we, as this generates funds from VR, we'll have some flexibility on spending. Maybe that'll look up.
You're correct, because one of the things that the districts that are involved in weekly, and I always have a voice, and that's why I participate at the table, is that if we've earned the right for those dollars, then we should be up to us as a district to decide on how we want to use those funds to put money back into our program. So they did lift those restrictions. You're absolutely correct.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Hall. Appreciate it.
Thank you, so very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you very much, Kyle. Thank you for all you do.
You're welcome. I will say this, since there's no other teachers in the room, I actually think I have the best job in the county. I'd rather no one else know that, because there's probably somebody that could do it better than me, and so I don't advertise how good it is, but I will tell y'all, thank y'all for creating this position. This is a good job. To be able to go out to the hardware store and teach a kid how to stock shelves in the hardware store, and it's a lot more up my alley than sitting in a classroom, and I have really enjoyed it.
And it's a skill that's needed.
Yes.
People just don't really realize, and just like you said, those stats, I wouldn't know that, but, that's something that is just so very, very important. And so it's really important to our kids. And you know what, that concerns me, one of the things, and I don't mean to go on about this, but it's like you said, the parent that wouldn't sign. And I'm sure that student really needed that. And then I know that from in the past, the students that you've brought and taught, and kids that really have been educated from the program, that if you've done an excellent job, that they really can't continue though, because maybe they don't have a ride, or maybe they don't have that parent to back them up. And that's kind of what I worry about, for the future for them.
Well, let me share this, and I don't mean to keep y'all, but that was one of the targets when we started this program. Before, with the community-based training program, as the teacher in Bronson, those were the only kids that I had access to. We didn't have a lot of business partners, so we had to use what we had, which, thank you, praise again. But I had kids from Bronson that I was putting in a van and bringing to Chief when I had several of them. Paige will tell you, they were good employees. They were employable. They were employable students, but once they graduated high school, they had no way to get in her restaurant to do the job. So it ended the whole thing. So with that in mind, because the experience we had at the beginning, I have tried my best to keep every kid in their hometown. Kids from Williston working in businesses in Williston, or maybe they could walk there. Kids in Bronson, that's a little bit tougher, but year one, we managed to do it. Now, we may get to a point where we can't do it because there's not as many opportunities. Chiefland kids, we're going to try to keep them in Chiefland. We want to make this, when they leave our program, they are employable at possibly one of those places where they've been working. So anyway, just, we're not trying to go at this just haphazard. let's send Sally to so-and-so and just get some hours. We're trying to make this meaningful and relevant and with an end result of we're gonna have employed people. So we got a long ways to go, but there's a little bit of, thought processes, simple thought, we're not having to be rocket scientists here, there's just some common sense stuff. And we've tried to apply that common sense to make this better.
Two things stick out to me in both these presentations. First thing is that you see the passion from the administrators that presented, Dr. Hall, Ward, and Kyle yourself. You're very passionate about this, and that's what we want from every single one of our employees. It doesn't matter what position you are, having that passion leads to success. And I think the second thing it goes back to the relationships that you build with those kids, with their families, with the teachers that you're going through. So appreciate it, and glad that we're able to provide this program.
Thank you.
And any way we can help too. I mean,
Just keep sports. Y'all are doing you're doing perfect. I mean, you're giving us the tools we need. I've had a van to use every day. Mr. Master's been more than accommodating. So anyway, y'all are doing y'all's part. We just need to grow the program and just keep it rolling. Yeah, thank y'all.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to our minutes. Are there any changes? The May 12th minutes?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Board members, have you had a chance to read those?
Yes, move approved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes to approve the minutes. Consent agenda, are there any changes?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. I'll start with Mr. Haskell.
I don't really have any questions. Everything's sort of self-explanatory. I always, at this time of year, have people always, that's always sort of sad. Hate to see anybody. I don't know why anybody leaves, but they do. I know that we'll be quickly filling those spots, so that doesn't freak me out like it. That's all right.
Just looking there, kind of piggybacking off what Mr. Asbell said. So there's some people leaving us that have really been valuable assets to our schools. So, and just appreciate. So I know one of them there, number 2, Mr. Fugit. So they were talking about getting kids through PERT testing the other day. So appreciate him, and I know he's kind of been talked about as the Algebra 1 whisperer over there at Wilson Middle High School. So, but wish him nothing but the best as he furthers and continues on. So, and other than that, I think all the questions. I see we have a reading endorsement here, the stuff that we talked about the other day. So, and just hope to continue that. I love that we have local people that are leading that. So, people that have a vested interest in getting those people. Hope to continue and see those people get a little bit more. So, appreciate that.
I forgot something. It's talking on my own topic. The last time I talked about this, it paid the internet and all this good stuff. But in the people that are leaving, I appreciate that they're coming. And several of these people, we've had conversations with some of these people. Some of these people could have left. We know of people who just up and abruptly go back. Today's my last day. I'm done in the middle when the kids are counting on. And if there was ever a year that you go, hey, I don't need me anymore. I'm leaving early. People stuck with their commitment. That speaks volumes to their professionalism. That's what I think when you enter into these contracts, when you enter into this profession, as we are all professionals, there's a certain amount of professionalism that I highly appreciate. Get out to the end, know when you're going to go, but we're going to end up, just like I said, he's still helping kids. He knows he's going. He's still helping kids. I have great respect for that, much more than I do somebody who just goes, well, it's Tuesday and I've had enough of this. So I just want to compliment those people. I hate to see them go. I appreciate their professionalism. Something to be said for that. So, sorry. I should have got that out the first time.
That's good, and I agree too. I look at it and I hate to see people leave. It's always sad, especially really good teachers, and we would wish everybody well. I know that we'll have some great teachers replace them, and we're gonna have a great next year, so I'm really looking forward to that. Do I hear a motion to approve our consent agenda?
So, second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes to approve our consent agenda. Mr. Edison?
Just a couple of things, and I don't want to steal anybody's thunder here, as of here. But I want to recognize some folks that, but I think went above and beyond expectations to make our graduations what they were. First off, our MIS staff, and all that they did to make the technical aspects of the streaming and everything else happen at once. I think, I don't know if you've seen the videos or not, it was very well done. It was just Morgan and Joe Bach and Lawrence. And of course, Rock was over there, and all of those folks to make this thing happen, so it was very special. One other thing about just maintenance, work that they've done to get those places ready, but also Breezy donated his men. They have worked over close to get that much. Just our folks. So those people just need some shout outs. Excuse me. And lastly, you have in your thing a little Q&A here on accountability. There's a lot of questions that are out there about different things, and whether kids can do this or kids can do that or go on or what we got to do. And so this is just a little Q&A that's out there from the monthly assessment call. It should be in the front of your binder. Accountability is going to be a different animal next year. For example, school grades, everything's coming in. You know, they didn't administer the FSA this year. And of course, the whole school grading system is built upon a progression of going from one grade to the next and everything else. But there's different things like, for example, the 5th grade growth is going to be based upon the 3rd grade school. So they're kind of looking at 2 years back when you're starting tracking on how students are doing, how schools will be graded, and everything else. What's college career, college acceleration is going to be, or middle school acceleration and high school acceleration. How that's going to look, we don't really know all the answers, but it's going to be different next year. And so we listened in on a workshop last week, and so we're going to be working with our folks to try to figure this stuff out, and it will be a change. And that's it. Any questions for me?
With Algebra 1, I know if you're a senior in the Algebra 1 requirement, you haven't passed the DOC, that's waived. What about our kids that are in Algebra 1? Are we going ahead and administering and giving them an opportunity to come to the school and test to get that credit? So,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they still can. We can do. We call that part summer school, and we won't have some this summer. But I think when the next assessment is given, is when they can really assessment is given when they can take it. That's a whole another ball of wax, because these kids, most of them take it in 8th grade now.
Right.
These kids still have to pass Algebra 1 to pass.
Right.
And so you've been removed from Algebra 1 first. Most of them is going to be 6 months, but you still got to pass. And so
I just didn't know if we had communicated, because I did have a parent that has an 8th grader that's in Algebra 1 and was doing well, and obviously with Mr. Buget, and if there was a way that we can go ahead and administer an assessment so they can get credit, or
we have to administer it when that state schedules them to be administered.
So we have to wait on that. So because I know the other option is that they take geometry and then they'll have to pass the geometry DOC.
Right.
So it's the way around, the workaround, but I just didn't know if we had the ability as a district to go ahead and administer some type of.
Yeah, we can only administer them when they administer them. They have windows, testing windows, and when those testing windows are open, we can do that.
Gotcha.
And there's not other kid goes from Algebra 1 to geometry. You do have some other kids that go to liberal arts math.
Right.
Yeah. And that's for some of those, that's probably this liberal arts math is good for algebra.
I've never heard the term algebra whisperer too. That's a nice term, especially since I'm not an algebra person.
Right.
That's good. Okay, I'll start with Mr. Aswell with any comments.
Well, Mr. Edson stole some of my thunder, but that's okay.
Okay.
And I'm okay with it, because this is something we really need to talk about. that graduation just happened. That took a lot of work, a lot of effort. And I don't think you can compliment and thank everyone involved enough and point out the great job they did. Yeah. Bad time, got to do something different. We were able to I showed up. But the IT department, man, that was awesome. If you haven't seen those videos, you're missing something cool. I did not know we had that kind of skill set in Lee County. That's amazing. And with the maintenance crew, those guys rocking and rolling 6 o'clock in the morning. They, the old Army said we've done more by 8 o'clock than most people do all day. That's those guys. And they threw that together and Bronson's graduation was exceptionally wonderful. Angles were right. There were some special highlights in there that the people that need to be thanked have been thanked for that. The big thing that happened, and I want to say I'll probably fill out the official form, but I will publicly right now say I believe that Cheryl Allen deserves an impact award for this reason. The racetracks had scheduled their first Bronson Speedway race for Friday night, at the exact same time as Bronson's graduation. And anybody that lives in Bronson since the invention of that racetrack in the 70s knows, depending on the wind blows, you feel like you're right there with it. So it was concerned. So several people that have lived here their whole lives were contacted. I was contacted. John Means was contacted. All reaching out to the racetrack. Hey, is there anything you can do about that? Anything you can do about it? Cheryl Allen sent an impassioned email to the racetrack. Now the rest of us have been told, no, I can't do it. She sent this impassioned email to them, and they said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to quit practicing at 7:50. Don't graduate. Call us. We won't start until after. Then this led into, they had a race car parade. Race cars came through the parking lot and revved their motors real loud, just to make a lot of noise for the kids. And that's all because of Cheryl Allen. That has nothing to do with, and the fact that one impassioned assistant principal reached out, and that made a world of difference to a bunch of kids. And I think that's just a fine example of what's wonderful in our small towns and our small communities. So we got that. Now the other thing, I need to brag on 2 students. I want to brag on 2 students at Bronson Middle High School. The first is Paige Brookins' -- employee.
That's right.
And Chris Cowart's now eldest son, Justin Giffen. Justin Giffen is impressive to me, and here's why. He goes to school during the day, he works for Paige Brookins at the gathering table, and does a very good job, works hard. And then in the evenings, he's dual enrolled in the welding program in Central Florida. Well, Justin passed his first level of welding the other day, and that is impressive to me. I like seeing a kid that took it upon himself to do this, and he has done an outstanding job. And I like giving Justin a hard time. Giff is my buddy, and I like giving him a hard time, and he is doing a wonderful job, and I'm incredibly proud of him. Now, the other kid that I want to brag on, we have our carpentry program at Bronson Middle High School, and it's been over 6 years since anybody passed the level 1 carpentry certification course. And a hard-headed kid by the name of Hayden Aspel has done that for the first time in a long time, and he and Mr. Myers worked hard on that thing. And the thing that I really got, and I was like, boys, if y'all can pull this off, I'm gonna be impressed. With the COVID-19 shutdown, there was a whole section of stuff that he needed to learn to pass that. And then Mr. Myers' off time and Hayden's off time in the evenings and all, they studied a section about building walls and how all that tie-in works, and a language that his old daddy don't speak, but they work together. And Myers could have said, nah, you want to do this during the daytime. But no, he said, okay, don't talk at night. And he took the test, did okay on the, I think I got 5 out of 6 parts. I can't remember the number. But anyway, that last little part that did, missed it by 2 points. He said, well, you get a retake on that one. So that was to be on, first it was going to be on Friday, they moved it to Monday. Well, on Sunday night, Hayden and Mr. Myers crammed for that thing on Sunday night over the phone at probably 11 o'clock at night. And then the next morning, they were ready. I think that speaks a lot. We talked earlier about relationships. My son has a tremendous relationship with this teacher, and I think we need more teachers like that. And I think we have a lot of teachers like that, but there's something about a teacher on a Sunday night that'll be on the phone with a 17-year-old aggravated kid to help him reach a goal. There's something to be said for that. And I'm proud that we have those folks in Lee County, and I'm proud of those two boys. They're fantastic guys, and they're buddies too. They Justin tranquilized the fish over the weekend. Somehow I caught this huge fish, but that's the story I'll let pop.
They broke a fishing pole yesterday on probably about a 50-pound drum, so.
They had a good time. So I'm proud of those boys. That's what I have.
And to piggyback off Mr. Asbell there, Mr. Myers said that probably sometime in the fall, that we may have about as many as 8 more students that are taking that certification and passing it. So that's a wonderful thing. We know what our mission statement is, and we know, just like Kyle's presentation and Dr. Hall, meeting each kid where they are and what their passion is, and trying to tap into that to make sure that we get the most out of them and we keep them ready, career and college ready. So appreciate them, his efforts. So obviously I'm partial to those two boys, so they're good boys and they work awfully hard. So both of them have jobs and school, and sometimes we get aggravated with them because school takes a back seat sometimes, so to everything else. But anyway, so they are. Graduations, obviously, maintenance, MIS. I mean, to think a month ago to be where we are to today speaks volumes, and appreciate every single person's efforts to make sure that we had in-person graduations. We know that there were still restrictions, but I think everybody at Williston Middle High School and Bronson Middle High School really followed directions. Our administrators did a great job of communicating and going through and keeping everybody safe and also celebrating. And because that's what time of year it is. It's a time of celebration, and that's what we've done today with the WBLE, the positive behavior, graduation time. Chieflands will be this Friday. So, and I know at Williston, Jonathan Lewis was a big part of getting a lot of extra things that went on over there. They had jumbotrons that people that couldn't be on the field because of the ticket allocation, they were able to sit in their cars and watch. And then to see the live stream of Bronson, I think we said close to 400 people that watched it while it was going on, and just really, really appreciate the hard work. So we were able to borrow a stage. Mr. Quincy talked about Miss Hood, but Miss Hood and Casey Rinaldi, it's when you see some of our most fragile kids being wheeled across the football field, and you hear a parent's sheer utter joy of seeing their kid who's in a wheelchair being a part of that, I tip my cap to them. So I would agree that Miss Allen, and I'm not so sure that Miss Rinaldi and Miss Hood don't deserve an impact award, because and I know Mr. Quincy's done that years of having those graduates and providing those kids that are just so dear to our hearts and are some of our most fragile. So appreciate their efforts. So that's a big task. And
Long Pond Baptist Church donated to ramp.
Long Pond, there we go. I couldn't remember, so I was thinking, so appreciate that. Appreciate Concord with the sound system, and Mr. Jamie, Miss Deborah there. So that's what it's all about, coming together as communities and provide what our needs are, meeting our needs, and we're sure appreciative of that. So looking forward to the next graduations, looking forward to continuing to work with this board for the better of our students. So thank you guys. And would be remiss to say that I don't think I've ever been to a graduation where we had a race car parade and rev up and also fireworks. So Mr. Asbell made sure they had fireworks there to celebrate the graduates. So
That's what we do.
And
Orange and blue.
orange and blue, and it was a sight to behold. So, and I know there was people that were worried, so thankful for the Bronson Fire Department to be there on the ready just in case. So, and
There's a lot of people worried.
It's been a strange year, but to be able to celebrate those kids, for them to have their night, I'm thankful. So, and we've got some great kids that are going to go and do great things. So.
Thank you. On the graduation of which I've only heard great, wonderful, positive things, and everybody's so happy. And I did see the live streams and everything. It was really, really nice. And Really looking forward to Chieflands too, which will be great, but, I do have to say that I'm so thrilled that they did graduate at home, and I sure hope that it will continue and they can be at their schools, and it was such a, I mean, to have the race cars there and to do that, and I mean, that's such, you couldn't do that in Gainesville. I mean, it's just wonderful. So I think that's outstanding, and that's nice, and that's something that they will remember they deserve, so that's great. And then, like Dr. Hall said, I certainly am ready for us to get back to our real meetings, and I hope that, we can do that, and guidelines will let us, because it does mean a difference when that the person gets to present rather than, by the telephone and all. Even though we're doing a great job and technology's wonderful and we can see that it's better every meeting. So you're doing a great job. I'm not complaining, but it does make a difference. And you think of different questions and things when they do present personally. On the positive behavior, I think you'd ask about high school. And so, Mr. Edison, I think with high school, the little ones, we can motivate with rewards and those kind of things. And so maybe we can ask Dr. Hall, maybe it's funding that the high school needs, and, we were going in that direction so that we do get the results, with the high school kids too, because that's gotta be a lot harder. I'm not a high school person. So.
Every one of our, when you think, our school system, I know we have middle high schools.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But middle school kids are different from high school kids.
They are.
Developmentally, kid does not go through a bigger change in life except for the first 3 years of their life than they do in middle school.
Right.
So those, that's when you see a kid when they come to you in 6th grade and they leave you in 8th grade, okay, they've gone from being like a little boy, little girl, to almost a young man in a day. And so that change is big. And so you go through that, then you get them into high school. One of these high school kids totally different than what does. So it's a process that you have to do in trying to understand kids and what motivates them. That's why I'm so excited about it, because that stands for the individual determination. That's what it stands for. It goes through, and it's a support for these kids. This is not PBIS is not be good and I'll give you this.
Right.
That's not what it's supposed to be about.
Right.
We all are motivated by different things, by a reward system, whatever that is. Whether it's just a job well done, and that's what we try to get to. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You want to do a good job, whatever it is you're doing. And so that's what we're trying to do. But just the kids react different. K1 and 2 is different from 3 to 5, which is different from 6 to 8, and 9 to 12. And 9th graders are much different than 12th graders. Yeah. So you just have to react and do. So we do have it in our schools, and it's just a different model for kids.
I agree, and it's good modeling. I've seen it throughout the years and it's working, and it's stronger in some schools than others, but I know it works different in high school.
It is there, again, a lot of this as far as negative here. Based on paper, stuff like that, that you got to go through and do and meet to get certain things. But I can tell you, I believe our folks are full of caring people, passionate people, trying to be that positive influence for our kids each and every day.
I agree 100%, and it's sure during this time it has been evident in so many ways. I mean, a teacher at 11 o'clock at night on the phone, above and beyond the things that they're doing, and to have contact with kids it's outstanding.
Something that I learned very early in my life is that, I'm a math teacher, but I learned that the PE coach can make my life a whole lot easier because of the relationship that a child has with a PE coach. They would come into my classroom for they to learn because of that relationship right there.
Right.
And so that's why it takes everybody working together for our kids.
I agree 100%. It certainly does. Are there any other comments or anything? Anything else? All right, if not, I hope everyone has a great week, and we'll see you next board meeting. Meeting adjourned.